The subtle power of boundaries in marriage often goes unnoticed because boundaries themselves are not loud, dramatic, or physically visible. They do not announce themselves in arguments or appear as lines drawn on the floor. Instead, they exist in the quiet, everyday decisions a couple makes about how they speak to each other, how they protect each other, and how they interact with the outside world. Boundaries are not built out of fear or separation. They are constructed from respect, self-awareness, and emotional maturity. When two people come together in a marriage, they bring with them not only their habits and dreams, but also their histories, families, social expectations, and the invisible influences that shaped them long before they knew each other. It is within this complex mix that boundaries become essential. They function as the framework that helps both individuals maintain their identities while participating in a shared life. In many relationships, challenges arise precisely because boundaries have not been discussed, understood, or respected. A partner may assume that love alone will dissolve conflict, or that marriage will automatically align two people's loyalties, priorities, and emotional needs. Yet the truth is that without intentional boundaries, misunderstandings multiply, resentment quietly grows, and external voices begin to carry more weight than they should. Boundaries protect a marriage by providing clarity about what is acceptable, what is hurtful, what is private, and what requires mutual decision-making. They also create a neutral space where both individuals can express themselves fully without fear of being judged, dismissed, or overrun by the expectations of extended family members. When outside opinions begin influencing a marriage, the impact can be subtle at first. A comment here, a suggestion there, a criticism delivered half-jokingly but carrying real weight. Families often mean well, but their involvement can unintentionally blur the lines of autonomy. A relationship becomes vulnerable not because someone's mother or sibling offers advice, but because the couple has not set boundaries around how much influence those opinions should hold. A partner may feel pressured to favor the voices they grew up with, while the other begins to feel pushed aside, undervalued, or disrespected. This emotional imbalance can grow if not addressed. Boundaries act as emotional buffers, absorbing external pressures so the core of the relationship remains strong. It is important to understand that boundaries are not walls. They do not block out family, prevent connection, or create hostility. Instead, they create guidelines that ensure interactions are healthy and respectful. A boundary might sound like, "I will listen to your family's perspective, but our decisions will be made between us," or "I appreciate your parents' involvement, but I need you to support me when I feel uncomfortable." These statements are not confrontational, they are protective. They establish emotional space in which both partners can breathe. They remind the relationship that unity matters more than external approval. Emotional boundaries are especially significant because they prevent partners from becoming overly responsible for each other's feelings or overly influenced by outside emotions. For example, if one partner feels compelled to meet every expectation of their parents, they may unintentionally sacrifice the well-being of their spouse. Conversely, if someone lacks emotional boundaries, they might internalize criticism from in-laws, believing it reflects their worth or role in the marriage. Healthy emotional boundaries allow a person to distinguish between what they feel and what others feel. They help individuals say, "This is my emotional responsibility," and that emotional expectation belongs to someone else. This clarity reduces unnecessary guilt, confusion, and conflict. Social boundaries also play a role, especially when a marriage involves strong family traditions or complex dynamics. Social boundaries decide how often the couple engages with extended family, how they handle invitations, how they respond to unsolicited advice, and how they present themselves in social gatherings. Without these boundaries, a marriage can become stretched between competing expectations, one side demanding loyalty, the other demanding independence. It is not uncommon for one partner to feel caught between being a spouse and being a child of their original family. When boundaries are clear, this internal tug-of-war becomes far easier to manage. Respect is the foundation of boundaries. When partners respect each other, They naturally protect each other's dignity, autonomy, and emotional well-being. But respect must be practiced, not assumed. This means asking, "How do you feel about this situation?" before acting on outside pressures. It means defending a partner in unfair situations, even when it feels uncomfortable. It means recognizing when a family member's tone, behavior, or comments cross a line and addressing it compassionately but firmly. Respectful boundaries do not seek to control others. They seek to preserve harmony within the relationship. One of the most misunderstood aspects of boundaries is that they are not about restricting love. They are about guiding it. When a partner communicates a boundary clearly, they are not rejecting the relationship, they are strengthening it. Boundaries prevent the slow erosion of trust and closeness that occurs when outside influences go unchecked. They prevent feelings of exclusion, insecurity, or disrespect from growing into larger issues. Most importantly, boundaries allow both individuals to remain whole within the marriage. A relationship thrives not when two people merge into one identity, but when two complete individuals create a shared life without losing themselves. Conflicts around family influence can feel especially sensitive because no one wants to appear hostile toward their partner's parents or relatives. Many people avoid setting boundaries out of fear of being labeled difficult, controlling, or disrespectful. Yet, avoiding boundaries often leads to deeper conflict in the future. A partner who consistently suppresses their discomfort eventually reaches a breaking point, and the resulting emotional explosion can cause more damage than an honest boundary ever would. Boundaries prevent this buildup by allowing issues to be addressed early, calmly, and constructively. Another important function of boundaries is preventing triangulation, a psychological term for situations where a third party becomes involved in a conflict between two people. In marriage, triangulation often happens when someone shares marital frustrations with their family instead of their spouse. This invites external opinions into private matters and gives outsiders unearned authority in the relationship. With boundaries, partners learn to speak directly to each other, not through others. They learn to communicate disagreements privately, resolve them internally, and present a united front externally. This does not mean ignoring problems. It means protecting the relationship from unnecessary interference. Boundaries also enhance autonomy. Autonomy is not independence. It is the ability to make choices that honor both the individual and the partnership. When boundaries are present, a person feels empowered to express their needs without guilt. They can say, "I need space," or "I need your support," or "I need us to make decisions together." Autonomy within marriage does not imply selfishness, but rather emotional responsibility. It means each partner takes ownership of their feelings, actions, and decisions, rather than blaming the other or relying on external validation. A marriage without boundaries becomes vulnerable to emotional drift. Partners may slowly move away from each other, not because they stopped loving each other, but because the noise of outside influence becomes louder than their own connection. When boundaries are strong, the relationship remains the primary emotional home. Couples begin to trust one another more deeply because they feel safe. Safe from judgment, safe from outside criticism, and safe from emotional neglect. The subtle power of boundaries extends beyond conflict prevention. It also fosters intimacy. When two people feel protected within their relationship, they naturally open up more. They share thoughts, fears, hopes, and vulnerabilities without hesitation. They no longer worry about their words being repeated to others or misinterpreted through outside influence. Intimacy grows in the spaces where emotional safety exists, and emotional safety grows where boundaries are honored. Additionally, boundaries teach couples how to handle cultural, religious, or generational differences. Many families have strong beliefs about marital roles, traditions, or expectations. Without boundaries, partners may feel pressured to adopt patterns that do not align with their values. Boundaries allow couples to choose which traditions to honor, which expectations to challenge, and which behaviors to establish as uniquely theirs. This freedom to co-create a shared culture strengthens the bond between partners. and prevents external expectations from overshadowing the relationship. Setting boundaries is not a one-time event. It is an evolving process. As life changes, moving homes, having children, managing careers, the need for new boundaries arises. What once felt comfortable may become overwhelming. What once felt acceptable may begin to feel intrusive. Healthy couples recognize these shifts and communicate openly about them. They revisit boundaries, adjust them, and reaffirm them. This continuous negotiation keeps the relationship emotionally aligned. Enforcing boundaries requires consistency, not aggression. A boundary loses its power when it is repeatedly ignored without consequence. This does not mean punishing a partner, but gently reinforcing the guidelines that sustain respect. It might sound like, "We agreed to handle this privately, so I'd appreciate if we revisit that commitment," or "It's important for me that you support me in these moments. Can we talk about what went wrong?" This approach avoids blame and invites collaboration. Ultimately, the subtle power of boundaries lies in their ability to protect love without suffocating it. They create a secure emotional environment in which both partners can thrive, grow, and express themselves authentically. Boundaries honor each person's humanity while strengthening the unity of the marriage. They remind the couple that their relationship is a partnership defined by mutual respect, not by external demands or inherited dynamics. In a world filled with opinions, expectations, and complex family relationships, boundaries are the quiet force that keeps a marriage grounded. They do not isolate, they illuminate. They do not reject, they safeguard. They do not build distance, they build clarity. And in that clarity, couples find not only peace but also the freedom to love each other more deeply, honestly, and securely. Emotional safety and the need for respect form the invisible architecture of every strong relationship. While love often gets the spotlight, emotional safety operates backstage, quietly shaping how deeply partners connect, how openly they communicate, and how securely they navigate the world together. Emotional safety is not about eliminating conflict or shielding each other from discomfort. It is about creating an atmosphere where both individuals feel valued, heard, and protected, especially when the stakes are high. Respect becomes the language through which emotional safety is delivered, reinforced, and sustained. Without respect, even the most passionate love loses its foundation. Without emotional safety, trust becomes fragile, conversations become guarded, and misunderstandings multiply. Every partner, regardless of their personality, background, or communication style, craves safety in the relationship. This safety is not physical, it is emotional, relational, and psychological. It means knowing that your feelings will not be mocked, your worries will not be dismissed, and your identity will not be overshadowed by someone else's expectations. It means feeling confident that the person you share your life with will not expose your vulnerabilities in front of others or abandon you in moments where support matters most. Emotional safety creates a container where both people can express themselves fully without fear of being judged or punished. One of the most damaging experiences in marriage is feeling unsupported in public settings. When a partner remains silent while others undermine you, or when they dismiss your feelings in a social context, it creates a rupture that goes deeper than the moment itself. Public disrespect signals to the other person that their emotional needs are secondary, their perspective is inconvenient, or their presence is not worth defending. These moments accumulate over time, forming layers of resentment that may remain unspoken but are deeply felt. Being left unprotected in high-stakes or visible situations creates a wound that often takes longer to heal than private disagreements. Respect acts as emotional protection. It is not about taking sides aggressively or creating unnecessary conflict with others. Instead, respect means acknowledging your partner's dignity, even when faced with pressure from family, friends, or social expectations. Respect can be expressed through small but powerful actions, standing beside your partner when they feel out of place, validating their feelings when others dismiss them, or politely redirecting inappropriate comments to maintain harmony without sacrificing your partner's sense of belonging. These gestures communicate, "You matter to me, I see you, and you are not alone." Emotional safety flourishes when both individuals know they can depend on each other, especially when the situation becomes uncomfortable. The opposite of emotional safety is relational uncertainty. This uncertainty arises when a partner feels they must monitor their words, hide their emotions, or walk on eggshells to avoid conflict. It arises when they are unsure whether their thoughts will be taken seriously or whether their concerns will be met with irritation. In relationships lacking emotional safety, communication becomes cautious, surface level, or strategic rather than authentic. Partners begin to self-censor. They stop sharing their needs, fears, and desires. Over time, this silence builds emotional distance that can feel like a quiet collapse, and many couples do not realize the extent of the damage until the connection has already weakened. Respectful communication is one of the most effective ways to rebuild emotional safety. Respectful communication does not mean avoiding hard conversations or pretending to agree on everything. Instead, it emphasizes tone, timing, and intention. Tone refers to the emotional quality behind the words, speaking with kindness instead of sarcasm, curiosity instead of accusation, and calmness instead of hostility. Timing acknowledges that difficult conversations require the right moment. Intention asks, "Am I speaking to understand or to win? Am I trying to connect or to defend?" When communication is grounded in respect, even uncomfortable topics can become pathways to closeness rather than triggers for conflict. When emotional safety has been damaged, rebuilding it requires consistent effort rather than grand gestures. Partners need to show through their daily behavior that the relationship is a priority. One powerful step is learning to validate feelings instead of solving or dismissing them. Validation is not agreement. It is acknowledgement. It sounds like, "I understand why you feel that way," or "Your feelings matter to me," or "I didn't realize that hurt you. Thank you for telling me." These statements create a bridge between two emotional worlds and help establish trust where trust has been shaken. Rebuilding emotional safety also requires addressing past moments of disrespect that may still linger. A partner who feels dismissed in the past may carry that memory into future interactions, causing them to react strongly even to minor triggers. Instead of labeling these reactions as overreactions, it is important to explore the emotional history behind them. The goal is not to assign blame, but to understand how each person's experiences shape their needs. Emotional safety grows when both partners feel safe enough to talk about the uncomfortable, the painful, and the vulnerable aspects of their history. Respect is not only demonstrated in conversations, but also in behavior. Small, consistent actions speak louder than promises. Respect can be seen in how partners speak about each other when the other is not present. It shows in how they protect each other's privacy, honor each other's boundaries, and acknowledge each other's contributions. Respect also means recognizing each other's emotional triggers and approaching them with care rather than irritation. When partners consistently practice respect, trust becomes resilient. This resilience is what allows couples to face challenges together without feeling threatened or divided. Emotional safety is not static. It evolves with the relationship. Life brings transitions, career shifts, parenthood, financial pressures, health challenges, and conflicts with extended family. Each transition introduces new emotional needs and potential vulnerabilities. Couples who prioritize emotional safety adapt to these changes by checking in with each other regularly. They ask, "How are you feeling about this? What do you need from me right now? How can we face this together?" These check-ins do not need to be formal. Often, they appear as gentle questions asked at night, during a drive, or over a quiet meal. What matters is the intention to stay emotionally connected. One reason emotional safety matters so deeply is that humans are wired for connection. Neuroscience shows that when people feel emotionally safe, their nervous systems relax, their conversations become clearer, and their decision-making becomes healthier. When emotional safety is absent, the body enters a stress response, flooded with anxiety, defensiveness, or withdrawal. This physiological shift affects communication, trust, and intimacy. In this sense, emotional safety is not only a psychological need but a biological one. It shapes the way partners speak, listen, love, and resolve conflict. High-stakes situations, like family gatherings, disagreements with outsiders, major decisions, or moments of public pressure, magnify the importance of emotional safety. These are moments where partners look for reassurance through body language, tone, or subtle cues. A supportive glance, a gentle touch on the arm, a quiet whisper of reassurance. These moments communicate unity. The absence of support during such moments feels like abandonment. It communicates, you are on your own, even if the words are never spoken. Emotional safety is reinforced when partners show they will not leave each other exposed in vulnerable situations, regardless of who is watching. Long-term resentment often develops when emotional safety is repeatedly violated. These violations may be small, interrupting, dismissing feelings, minimizing concerns, or taking someone's side in a way that leaves the partner isolated. Over time, these small cracks accumulate. Resentment is not born from one incident, but from the slow collection of unmet emotional needs. Respectful communication interrupts this process. It ensures that misunderstandings are addressed before they harden into permanent distance. It encourages partners to repair rather than retreat, to clarify rather than assume, and to apologize rather than deflect. Apologies are a major component of rebuilding emotional safety. A genuine apology is not simply a string of words. It acknowledges the hurt, accepts responsibility, and expresses a commitment to change. A partner who can recognize how their actions affected the other communicates maturity and emotional awareness. Apologies open the door to healing, while defensiveness closes it. Emotional safety grows each time a partner says, "I hear you. I didn't realize how that affected you," or "I'll do better next time." Another key element in emotional safety is predictability. Partners need to feel that they can rely on each other emotionally. This does not mean being perfect, it means being consistent in effort, presence, and intention. Predictability reduces anxiety. When someone knows how their partner will respond in stressful situations, it creates a sense of stability. Emotional unpredictability is one of the biggest threats to relationship security because it forces the nervous system to remain on alert, never knowing when conflict or withdrawal will arise. Having emotional safety does not eliminate disagreements, it transforms them. Instead of fights that escalate into personal attacks, disagreements become exchanges of perspective. Instead of using blame or criticism, partners use curiosity. Emotional safety makes it possible to say, "Help me understand," instead of "Why are you like this?" Respect allows partners to discuss differences without fear that the relationship itself is threatened. This type of communication strengthens the bond and makes the relationship feel like a place of continuous growth rather than ongoing tension. Ultimately, emotional safety and respect form the foundation upon which all other aspects of a marriage stand: intimacy, trust, loyalty, communication, and long-term commitment. Without emotional safety, love becomes insecure. Without respect, love becomes unbalanced. But when both exist together, relationships become resilient, compassionate, and deeply fulfilling. Emotional safety makes a marriage feel like home. Respect makes it feel worthy of staying. Through supportive actions, kind communication, and consistent effort, partners create a space where both can thrive, grow, and feel cherished, not only in private, but in every space where their relationship is witnessed by the world. In-law dynamics and hidden power structures form some of the most influential, yet least discussed, forces that shape a marriage. When two people choose each other, they do not only merge their lives, they enter an entire ecosystem built long before their relationship began. This ecosystem includes long-standing traditions, unspoken hierarchies, emotional loyalties, expectations rooted in culture, and personalities shaped by decades of family history. Extended families carry their own rhythms, rules, and identities, and when a new partner enters, those structures can either open their arms with warmth or reinforce their boundaries to maintain the status quo. Understanding these dynamics is essential for protecting emotional well-being, preventing misunderstandings, and creating a marriage that thrives rather than bends under pressure. Many families operate under hidden power structures, patterns of authority and influence that are so normalized within the family that no one openly acknowledges them. These structures determine who makes decisions, whose opinions are valued most, who sets the tone in social gatherings, and who is expected to mediate conflicts. When a partner joins such a family, they often enter these dynamics without any preparation or understanding. They may find themselves navigating personalities that expect loyalty and respect without offering the same in return. They may be judged by standards they were never informed about. They may even be expected to conform to traditions that do not align with their values. These experiences can be confusing and emotionally draining, especially if they feel outnumbered or unsupported. A dominant personality, such as a strong-willed mother-in-law, can significantly influence these dynamics. For many families, the mother figure represents the emotional center, the keeper of tradition, and the silent authority. Her presence may shape decisions about gatherings, relationships, and expectations. Entering such a space without losing one's voice requires a blend of emotional intelligence, assertiveness, and patience. The challenge is not to overpower the dominant personality, but to coexist without compromising identity, dignity, or self-respect. It is about learning when to speak, when to step back, when to set boundaries, and when to allow certain things to unfold without taking them personally. The first step in navigating in-law dynamics is recognizing that every family system has emotional roles. Some members lead, some follow, some mediate, and some rebel. These roles are often deeply ingrained. For example, a partner may have spent their entire life deferring to their parents' opinions or prioritizing their parents' emotional needs. The presence of a spouse does not automatically change this dynamic. The partner may feel torn between honoring old loyalties and embracing new responsibilities. Without conscious effort and communication, the spouse may feel neglected or undervalued in situations where they expected support. Understanding hidden power structures does not imply viewing the in-laws as adversaries. Instead, it encourages awareness of patterns that existed long before you joined the family. Many conflicts with in-laws arise not from malicious intent, but from differing expectations and communication styles. A dominant in-law may believe they are protecting their child, upholding tradition, or maintaining order, while the spouse perceives their behavior as controlling or exclusionary. Without clarity, these differences create emotional injuries that accumulate over time. One significant challenge is the expectation of assimilation, the subtle pressure placed on a partner to adopt the family's norms without question. This can include roles such as how holidays are celebrated, how decisions are made, how conflict is handled, and even how affection is expressed. Some families prioritize harmony over honesty, while others believe confrontation is normal. Some are heavily involved in each other's personal lives, while others value privacy. When a spouse comes from a different background, these differences can cause friction. They may feel judged for not fitting in or criticized for simply being themselves. Navigating these situations requires emotional balance. Losing one's voice or constantly adjusting to meet the family's expectations creates resentment and erodes self-worth. On the other hand, approaching the situation with defensiveness or hostility disrupts the marital bond and deepens division. The goal is to maintain authenticity while building respectful relationships with the in-laws. This balance is achieved through communication, boundaries, and mutual understanding. A crucial component of navigating in-law dynamics is the support of one's partner. When a spouse observes disrespect or discomfort and does nothing, the emotional injury intensifies. It signals that the spouse's feelings hold less value compared to the comfort of the extended family. Conversely, when a partner communicates respectfully with their family on behalf of their spouse, it strengthens trust and unity within the marriage. The message becomes clear: this relationship comes first, and respect for my partner is non-negotiable. This does not mean creating conflict with the in-laws, but gently shifting the family's expectations and reinforcing fairness. Hidden power structures often surface in moments of conflict or celebration: weddings, anniversaries, family events, or major decisions. These situations reveal who assumes leadership, who expects obedience, and who resists change. A dominant in-law may subtly or openly attempt to influence decisions that should belong to the couple. This influence may come in the form of unsolicited advice, criticism disguised as concern, or emotional pressure. Learning to identify these patterns is essential. It allows the spouse to respond thoughtfully instead of reacting impulsively. Respectful assertiveness becomes a valuable skill. It involves expressing your needs clearly, without aggression. For example, "I appreciate your input, but this is a decision we need to make together," or "I understand this tradition is important to you. Let's find a way to honor it while also making space for what works for us." These statements uphold boundaries while preserving respect and connection. The goal is not to challenge the family hierarchy, but to gently integrate one's voice into the existing structure. It is equally important to refrain from competing with in-laws for influence. Attempts to prove superiority or gain the partner's loyalty through comparison only fuel tension. Instead, authenticity and consistency gradually shift dynamics. Over time, in-laws often adjust when they see the couple functioning as a united, respectful team. Unity between partners dissolves many conflicts before they escalate. When the marriage presents a solid, emotionally aligned front, external pressures have less impact. Cultural and generational differences further complicate in-law relationships. What one generation perceives as normal, such as parental involvement in adult children's decisions, may feel intrusive to another. Understanding these differences reduces assumptions and facilitates empathy. For example, a mother-in-law who appears controlling may come from a culture where elders naturally guide younger family members. Recognizing the context does not require accepting unwanted interference, but it helps respond with compassion rather than resentment. At the same time, compassion must not replace boundaries. It is possible to understand someone's behavior without allowing it to dominate the relationship. Respectful boundaries prevent emotional exhaustion. They allow the spouse to remain connected to the extended family without feeling suffocated. Boundaries may include decisions about private matters, frequency of visits, involvement in personal issues, or the handling of criticism. These boundaries do not exclude the in-laws. They simply protect the couple's autonomy. Communication between partners is vital for navigating these dynamics. Many issues arise not from the in-laws themselves, but from unspoken assumptions between the couple. One partner may expect unwavering loyalty, while the other expects harmony with their parents. One may be sensitive to criticism, while the other is accustomed to blunt communication. Talking openly about emotional triggers, comfort levels, and expectations prevents misinterpretation. It also helps the couple anticipate challenges and respond intentionally rather than emotionally. Over time, as the couple deepens their understanding of each other's family systems, navigating in-law dynamics becomes easier. Familiar patterns become predictable, emotional triggers become manageable, and boundaries become respected. Even dominant personalities soften when they see that the couple respects them while maintaining their own integrity. Many in-laws simply want to feel acknowledged, valued, or included. Offering respect while asserting autonomy bridges differences and reduces tension. However, there are times when a dominant or controlling in-law refuses to adjust. In such cases, emotional protection becomes essential. The spouse must consistently support their partner and ensure that disrespect does not go unaddressed. This does not mean ultimatums or confrontations, but quiet, steady reinforcement of boundaries and values. Over time, consistent behavior teaches the in-laws how the couple expects to be treated. Emotional injuries diminish when partners feel protected, understood, and prioritized. Ultimately, navigating in-law dynamics and hidden power structures requires patience, emotional intelligence, and mutual support. It is not about defeating dominant personalities or reshaping established hierarchies. It is about understanding the environment, recognizing the emotional forces at play, and building a marital alliance strong enough to withstand external pressures. When handled with awareness and care, these challenges can deepen the couple's connection and transform the marriage into a sanctuary, one where both partners feel empowered, respected, and united, regardless of the complexity surrounding them. Conflict as a catalyst for growth rather than division is one of the most misunderstood yet essential aspects of intimate relationships. People often assume that harmony means the absence of disagreements, or that a strong partnership is defined by how well two individuals avoid difficult conversations. But in truth, relationships are not measured by the lack of conflict. They are shaped by how partners navigate the inevitable friction that arises when two complex histories, temperaments, and emotional needs intersect. Conflict itself is not the problem. What matters is whether it becomes destructive criticism, silent withdrawal, or emotional shutdown, or whether it becomes a doorway to deeper clarity, healing, and understanding. Within this framework, even moments of pain, disrespect, or exclusion can reveal hidden patterns that need attention, turning discomfort into an opportunity for realignment and relational strengthening. When a partner experiences a moment of hurt, perhaps being excluded in a social setting, dismissed in front of others, or talked over during an important event, the emotional injury is rarely about the moment alone. It reflects something deeper, a longing to feel valued, chosen, and seen within the partnership. These moments activate old wounds, insecurities, or relational fears that have often been shaped long before the relationship even began. Yet rather than letting these incidents fester into resentment, couples can use them as signals, an invitation to pause, examine what each partner truly needs, and decode the emotional meaning behind the conflict. For example, if one partner feels disrespected in a public setting, the instinctive reaction may be anger or defensiveness. But beneath that is almost always a more vulnerable truth. I needed you to protect me, or I needed to trust that you would stand beside me, or I needed to feel like your partner, not an outsider. These vulnerable truths are the heart of relational transformation. They shift the conversation from blame to emotional transparency. They invite curiosity rather than counterattack. They help both partners see that conflict is not about proving who is right, but about understanding what is meaningful. Transforming conflict requires recognizing that every emotional reaction points to an unmet need or a threatened value. Hurt often signals a need for respect. Anger signals a need for boundaries. Silence signals a need for safety. Withdrawal signals a fear of escalation. When partners learn to identify and articulate these emotional codes, the relationship becomes a space where conflict no longer represents danger, but discovery. This is the foundation of using tension as a catalyst for growth, the ability to lean into the discomfort with compassion rather than fear. One of the reasons conflict becomes divisive rather than constructive is that most people have inherited dysfunctional, conflict patterns from their families of origin. Some grew up in environments where conflict meant shouting, emotional chaos, or humiliation, so their instinct is to hide or appease. Others were raised in homes where conflict was avoided entirely, so they never learned how to articulate emotions or negotiate needs. And still others were conditioned to win arguments rather than understand them. These inherited blueprints quietly dictate how individuals approach disagreements, often without awareness. When partners recognize that they are not just reacting to the present moment but to accumulated emotional histories, it becomes easier to approach conflict with empathy. Another essential dimension is how partners communicate during tense moments. Many conflicts escalate not because of the issue itself, but because of how the issue is expressed. Criticism leads to defensiveness. Defensiveness leads to counterattack. Counterattack leads to emotional withdrawal. This cycle erodes trust over time. Instead, when partners practice assertive communication, expressing feelings without accusation, and expressing needs without pressure, They create emotional safety even in difficult conversations. For example, saying "I felt alone when that happened" invites openness, while saying "you embarrassed me" invites resistance. The shift may seem subtle, but it changes the direction of the entire interaction. It keeps the conversation relational instead of confrontational. Using conflict for growth also requires a willingness to take personal responsibility. This does not mean accepting blame for everything, nor does it mean suppressing one's feelings for the sake of peace. Personal responsibility means asking what part of the conflict belongs to each partner, what each person can learn from the moment, and what each can do to meet the other with more maturity and compassion next time. It means recognizing that a relationship is not built by perfect partners, but by partners who are willing to engage, repair, and recommit. Repair is a crucial component. After a painful moment, the repair process becomes the bridge between rupture and reconnection. Effective repair is not about dismissing the conflict with a quick apology or pretending the hurt didn't matter. True repair acknowledges the emotional reality. "I understand why that hurt you," or "I see now that I didn't protect our unity," or "I regret that my actions made you feel unsupported." This kind of repair restores trust because it validates the partner's experience. It reinforces the sense that the relationship is a secure base where both people can bring their pain without fear of judgment. Growth after conflict also depends on the ability to differentiate between intention and impact. Many partners defend themselves by focusing on their intentions. "I didn't mean to hurt you, it wasn't my fault, it was misunderstood," while ignoring the emotional impact that the other person experienced. But healthy relationships understand that impact matters just as much as intention. A partner can unintentionally hurt someone, and the hurt is still real. Acknowledging impact creates space for healing. It teaches emotional accountability without shame. It shows care for the partner's inner world. This allows both partners to move from defensiveness toward curiosity, asking not only what happened, but why it mattered emotionally. Furthermore, conflict can reveal hidden relational dynamics that were previously unacknowledged. Perhaps one partner feels overshadowed in the presence of dominating family members. Perhaps one struggles with loyalty conflicts between their partner and their family. Perhaps an old pattern of emotional avoidance becomes visible under stress. These hidden dynamics often surface only through conflict, and while they may feel destabilizing, they also provide clarity about what needs to change. They highlight where boundaries must be strengthened, where communication must deepen, and where emotional maturity must grow. A powerful aspect of using conflict for growth is learning to shift from reactive emotions to reflective insight. In reactive mode, partners respond impulsively, driven by fear, insecurity, or wounded pride. But reflection invites a pause. It encourages partners to ask deeper questions. What did this situation trigger in me? What fear was activated? What need was not being met? What part of this moment belongs to me? And what part belongs to our relationship dynamic? Reflection transforms conflict from a battlefield into a classroom, an opportunity to learn about oneself and one's partner in a deeper, more meaningful way. When partners commit to building a relationship where conflict is seen as a chance to deepen emotional connection, something shifts fundamentally. The relationship becomes more resilient, trust becomes stronger, vulnerability becomes safer, and mutual understanding becomes richer. Instead of fearing disagreements, partners begin to see them as signals guiding them toward healthier patterns. Conflict stops feeling like a threat and becomes a collaborative effort to strengthen the relationship's foundation. Importantly, conflict-driven growth does not happen overnight. It requires consistent emotional practice, patience, and a willingness to engage even when it feels uncomfortable. It requires both partners to replace blame with introspection, to replace assumption with communication, and to replace emotional withdrawal with courageous honesty. It also requires compassion, for oneself and for one's partner. Growth is rarely linear. Partners will make mistakes, misunderstand each other, or fall back into old patterns. What matters is not perfection, but the consistent choice to return to understanding. Ultimately, conflict as a catalyst for growth is about reclaiming relationships as spaces of emotional evolution rather than emotional threat. It teaches that painful experiences do not have to create disconnection. They can be turning points that deepen trust, intimacy, and mutual respect. They can illuminate what truly matters in the partnership. They can reveal each partner's deepest values, needs, and desires. They can dismantle generational patterns and replace them with healthier relational models. And they can transform a moment of hurt into a future of stronger connection. When partners learn to approach conflict this way, the relationship evolves from transactional to transformational, from something they simply maintain to something they actively cultivate. Moments of tension become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks, and the relationship becomes not just a place of comfort, but a space where both partners grow into their most authentic, secure, and emotionally attuned selves.